Remove your dress. The Duke's cold command to a stranger who was actually his son's governess. He didn't mean to say it. The words came out like a reflex, cold, sharp, final. Remove your dress, he ordered. She froze, eyes wide. It wasn't until the candlelight caught her face pale, trembling, that he realized who she was, his son's governess. And the air between them burned with something neither could name. Subscribe now for more scandalous Duke romances where one mistake changes everything. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now let's continue in the story. The mistake began with rain. If the storm hadn't delayed Maya Coates's coach by 3 hours, she would have arrived at Thornfield Manor at 4 o'clock as scheduled in daylight, through the proper servants' entrance, where the housekeeper, Mrs. Beatrice Thornwell, would have received her with tea and instructions. Instead, she arrived at 7:30 in the evening, drenched to the bone, her traveling cloak heavy with water, stumbling through the wrong door into a house transformed by candlelight and music. Maya had never seen anything like it. The entrance hall blazed with hundreds of candles. Masked figures in silk and velvet swirled past, their laughter echoing off marble floors. A string quartet played somewhere deeper in the house. The air smelled of expensive perfume, wine, and beeswax. A ball. Of course. She'd read the advertisement for the governor's position 6 weeks ago, and it had mentioned that His Grace the Duke of Thornfield occasionally hosted society events. But Mrs. Thornwell's letter had assured Maya that she would arrive well before any such gathering, that she would be settled in the servants' quarters, introduced to young Master Oliver, and given a full day to acclimate before beginning her duties. The rain had ruined everything. Maya stood dripping in the doorway, clutching her single traveling bag, completely invisible to the glittering crowd. She should find a servant, should ask for Mrs. Thornwell, should absolutely not be standing here gaping like a country mouse at the splendor of the Duke's home. But she was frozen, overwhelmed by the opulence, by the realization that she was about to live in this magnificent prison, teaching a 7-year-old boy she'd never met, working for a duke she'd only heard about in whispers. David Fisher, the Duke of Thornfield. I was widowed 5 years ago, raising his son alone, known for being cold, exacting, impossible to please. Maya had needed the position too desperately to care about the Duke's reputation. The salary was more than she'd earned in 3 years as a schoolteacher in the village. Her father's debts wouldn't pay themselves. Her mother's medicines didn't materialize from thin air, so Maya had applied, interviewed with Mrs. Thornwell in London, and accepted the post within a week. Now, standing in this glittering chaos, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Lost, darling? Maya jumped. A masked woman in emerald silk swept past, her laugh musical and knowing. The ladies' retiring room is upstairs, second door on the left, though if you're looking for more private accommodations, I'd suggest the east wing. Before Maya could explain that she wasn't a guest, the woman disappeared into the crowd. I need to find Mrs. Thornwell. Maya spotted what looked like a servants' corridor partially hidden behind a silk curtain. She hurried toward it, desperate to escape the main gathering. But as she passed through the curtain, she realized her mistake. This wasn't a servants' corridor. It was a private drawing room, smaller, dimmer, lit only by firelight and a few scattered candles. The door at the far end likely led to the servants' areas, but between Maya and that door stood a problem. A man. He faced the fire, one hand braced against the mantel, his posture radiating tension. He wore black evening clothes, no mask. His dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His shoulders were broad, his bearing unmistakably aristocratic. Even from behind, he commanded the space, like a king surveying his domain. Maya's breath caught. The Duke, she should leave. Should back out silently before he noticed her. But as she took a step backward, a floorboard creaked. The Duke turned, and Maya forgot how to breathe. He was devastatingly handsome in the way that powerful men often were not from perfect features, but from the absolute certainty in his bearing. His face was all sharp angles and aristocratic lines, his jaw strong, his eyes the color of winter storms. He studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Well," he said, his voice low and cold as frost. "I didn't expect Hartley to be so efficient." Maya blinked. "I'm sorry, Your Grace, no names." He moved toward her with predatory grace. "That was the agreement. Anonymity protects us both." Confusion crashed over Maya. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to do exactly as I say. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Maya could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the wineglass he'd apparently set down before she entered. I assume you've been paid. Paid? Maya's mind raced. What was he talking about? Generously, I hope. Hartley assured me he'd handle the arrangements discreetly. David's eyes traveled over her not lecherously, but with clinical assessment. You're younger than I expected, and you look terrified. Are you frightened of me? I know, Your Grace. Good. Fear ruins everything. He circled her slowly, and Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. I have very specific requirements. I need someone who understands discretion. Who won't speak of this to anyone? Who can follow instructions without unnecessary questions? Maya's confusion crystallized into horror. Oh God! He thinks I'm... Remove your dress. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Her entire body went rigid. What? Your dress. David's tone remained cold, detached. Remove it, now. Maya's face burned. Her hands trembled. The Duke thought he believed she'd been hired to. Your Grace, there's been a mistake. If you're going to be difficult, I'll have Hartley send someone else. But I was told you were professional, that you understood the nature of this arrangement. His eyes hardened. So I'll ask once more. Remove. He stopped. Maya had stepped into a pool of candlelight from the mantel, and for the first time, David actually saw her. Saw her plain wool dress, her waterlogged cloak, her sensible boots. Saw her traveling bag clutched in white-knuckled hands. Saw her face young, pale with shock, eyes wide with fear and confusion. This wasn't a courtesan. This was a servant. The realization hit David like a punch to the gut. Who are you? Maya Coates, Your Grace. Her voice shook. I'm the new governess. For Master Oliver. I arrived late because of the storm, and I came through the wrong entrance, and I was trying to find Mrs. Thornwell. David's face was drained of color. The governess. Yes, Your Grace. The woman I interviewed. In London. 6 weeks ago. Mrs. Thornwell conducted the interview. Your Grace. But yes, Christ. David turned away sharply, one hand dragging through his hair. His entire body radiated mortification and fury, though, whether directed at himself or the situation, Maya couldn't tell. Mrs. Thornwell mentioned you were arriving today. Completely the ball I wasn't thinking. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Maya stood frozen, unsure whether to flee or wait for dismissal. Her face still burned with humiliation, her hands still trembled. The Duke's words echoed in her ears. Remove your dress. He'd thought she was a prostitute, hired for his pleasure, brought to this room for... I owe you an apology. David's voice was rough now, stripped of its earlier coldness. He still didn't face her. What I said was unconscionable. I mistook you for someone else. Someone who had been invited here for a very different purpose. I understand, Your Grace. Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. No, you don't. David finally turned, and Maya saw genuine anguish in those winter storm eyes. There's no excuse for what I said to you, for how I spoke to you. I had been drinking. I was expecting... He stopped himself. It doesn't matter what I was expecting. What matters is that I gave you an order that was completely inappropriate, and I cannot begin to express how deeply I regret it. Maya swallowed hard. She needed this position, needed the salary, couldn't afford to lose this post because of a humiliating misunderstanding on her first night. Your Grace, if we could simply forget this happened. Can you? David's laugh was bitter. Can you forget that your employer commanded you to disrobe within 5 minutes of your arrival? Can you forget that I mistook you for a... He couldn't finish the sentence. I can try, Maya whispered. David studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Maya couldn't name it, couldn't categorize the way his eyes lingered on her face, the way his jaw tightened, the way he seemed to be memorizing her features in the candlelight. You're very gracious, Miss Coates, he said finally. More gracious than I deserve. I need this position, Your Grace. I can't afford to let this ruin my opportunity. No one will know what happened here. You have my word. Thank you. Another silence. Heavier this time. charged with something Maya didn't understand. "I should find Mrs. Thornwell," Maya said quietly. "Get settled. Meet Oliver in the morning." "Yes." David moved to the door, the one that actually led to the servants' corridors, and opened it for her. "Mrs. Thornwell's office is at the end of this hall. Third door on the right. She'll be expecting you." Maya gathered her bag and walked toward the door, acutely aware of David's proximity as she passed him. She could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something darker, could feel the heat radiating from his body, could sense his eyes on her even though she didn't dare look at him. As she reached the threshold, David spoke again. "Miss Coates." She paused, looking back over her shoulder. David's expression was unreadable, part apology, part something else entirely. "Welcome to Thornfield Manor." "Thank you, Your Grace." Maya fled into the servants' corridor before he could say anything else. She didn't see the way David remained in the doorway, watching her disappear into the shadows. Didn't see the way his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Didn't see the way he closed his eyes and exhaled like a man who'd just narrowly avoided catastrophe. But she felt the weight of his gaze all the way down the hall. And when she finally found Mrs. Thornwell's office, when the kind-faced housekeeper took one look at Maya's shaken expression and immediately began fussing over her wet clothes and offering tea, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in the moment David's eyes had found hers in the candlelight. Something that had nothing to do with mistaken identity, and everything to do with the way her heart still raced when she remembered the command in his voice. "Remove your dress." Maya didn't sleep that night. Mrs. Thornwell had been everything the Duke was not: warm, welcoming, motherly. She'd shown Maya to a small but comfortable room in the servants' wing, brought her hot soup and bread, helped her hang her few dresses in the narrow wardrobe, and chatted about the household routines as if Maya were a favorite niece rather than an employee. "His Grace can be intense, Mrs. Thornwell had said carefully as she prepared to leave for the night. "But he's a good man, a devoted father. Oliver is his entire world." Maya had nodded, not trusting herself to speak about the Duke. "You'll meet Oliver in the morning. 7 o'clock sharp. He takes breakfast in the nursery, then lessons begin at 8. He's a bright boy. Curious. Sometimes lonely, I think, without other children around." Mrs. Thornwell had paused at the door. "He needs someone kind, Miss Coates. Someone patient. I have a feeling you'll be exactly what he needs." Now, lying in her narrow bed as dawn light crept through the curtains, Maya wondered if Mrs. Thornwell would still think so if she knew what had happened in the drawing room. "Remove your dress." The words haunted her. Not because they'd been cruel, though they had been shocking, but because of what came after. The way David had looked at her once he realized his mistake. The apology in his eyes. The self-loathing in his voice. And beneath it all, something else. Something Maya didn't want to name. Attraction. Undeniable, inappropriate, impossible attraction. She'd felt it in the charged silence between them, in the way his eyes had traced her face in the candlelight, in the way her pulse had quickened when he'd stood close enough for her to feel the heat of his body. "Stop it," Maya commanded herself. "He's the Duke, your employer. You're here for Oliver, nothing else." At 6:45, Maya, dressed in her best governess attire, a dove-grey dress with a high collar and long sleeves, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Professional, respectable, utterly unremarkable. When she looked in the small mirror above her washstand, she barely recognized herself. "Good. You're not that girl from the drawing room anymore. You're Miss Coates, the governess, that's all." Oliver Fisher was nothing like Maya had expected. She'd taught children before at the village school, rowdy farm boys and shy village girls, children who came to lessons hungry and left eager to return to their chores. She'd expected a duke's son to be different. Spoiled, perhaps, entitled, difficult. Instead, she found a small boy with his father's dark hair and storm-colored eyes, sitting perfectly still at a table in the nursery, his breakfast untouched, a book open in front of him that was far too advanced for a 7-year-old. "Master Oliver?" Maya said softly from the doorway. The boy looked up, and Maya's heart clenched. He had the saddest eyes she'd ever seen on a child. "You're the new governess," he said. Not a question. A statement delivered in a voice too formal for someone so young. "I am. My name is Miss Coates, but you may call me Miss Maya if you prefer. Father says familiarity with servants is inappropriate." Maya's eyebrows rose. "Did he?" Well, I'm not just any servant. I'm your teacher. And teachers and students should be comfortable with each other, don't you think? Oliver considered this seriously. Miss Pemberton, she was my last governess, she said. I should call her Miss Pemberton. Always. And where is Miss Pemberton now? Father dismissed her, she cried. I see. Maya moved into the room, careful to keep her movements slow and unthreatening. Well, I don't intend to make you uncomfortable, Oliver. If you'd prefer Miss Coates, that's perfectly fine. Did Father interview you? The question caught Maya off guard. Mrs. Thornwell interviewed me, in London. But did Father approve of you? Yes. I suppose he must have. Oliver nodded solemnly, as if this confirmed something important. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small tentative thing that transformed his serious face. You're prettier than Miss Pemberton. Maya felt heat creep into her cheeks. That's kind of you to say, but what matters is whether I'm a good teacher. Shall we find out? Will you teach me Latin and Greek? Miss Pemberton said. I was too young, but I've already taught myself some from Father's books. You taught yourself Latin? A little. And I can read some Greek. And I speak French. And I'm learning Italian from the chef. Maya blinked. This child was extraordinary. Then we'll certainly include Latin and Greek in your lessons. What else interests you? Everything. Oliver's face lit up properly now, the sadness receding. History, science, mathematics and geography. Father has a globe in his study, and sometimes he lets me spin it and tells me about different countries. Have you travelled, Miss Maya? The title slipped out naturally, and Maya didn't correct it. Not very far, I'm afraid, but I've read about many places. Perhaps we can travel together through books? I'd like that very much. And just like that, Maya was enchanted. They spent the morning together, not doing formal lessons, but simply talking. Maya assessed Oliver's remarkable abilities, his gaps in knowledge, his hunger to learn. She told him about her own childhood, about the books she'd loved, about her father's small library that she'd read cover to cover by age 12. Oliver absorbed everything like a sponge. He asked questions, made observations, laughed at Maya's gentle jokes. By the time the morning lessons were supposed to end, neither of them wanted to stop. Master Oliver, a voice said from the doorway. Miss Coates. Maya turned to find David standing in the entrance to the nursery, and her breath caught exactly the way it had the night before. He wore riding clothes today, buff breeches, tall boots, a dark coat that emphasized his broad shoulders. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been outside in the wind. He looked younger in daylight, less forbidding, though the intensity in his eyes remained unchanged. Father! Oliver jumped up, all formality forgotten. Miss Maya is wonderful. She knows Latin and Greek, and she's going to teach me about ancient civilizations, and Miss Maya. David's eyebrow rose, and his gaze shifted to Maya. She lifted her chin. Oliver asked if he could call me that, Your Grace. I hope that's acceptable. Father said familiarity with servants is inappropriate, Oliver recited dutifully. But Miss Maya explained that teachers aren't servants, they're educators. And she said, It's fine. David's voice was gentler when he addressed his son. If Miss Coates doesn't object to the informality, neither do I. Really? Oliver's face shone. May I show her the globe? In your study? She said we could travel through books, and I thought, after lunch, perhaps. David moved into the room, and Maya felt suddenly trapped. The nursery wasn't small, but David's presence filled it entirely. I came to see how Miss Coates's first morning progressed. I trust Oliver hasn't been too demanding. He's been perfect, Your Grace. Maya kept her voice steady, professional, exceptionally bright, curious. A joy to teach. She said I could learn Latin. Oliver bounced excitedly. And Greek. And she knows about Egyptian pharaohs and Roman emperors, and Oliver. David's tone was soft but commanding. Take your lunch downstairs. Tell cook I said you may have an extra sweet today for making Miss Coates's first morning pleasant. Oliver's eyes widened. Really? Thank you, Father. He turned to Maya. I'll see you after lunch, Miss Maya. He darted out of the room, leaving Maya alone with David. The silence stretched unbearably. He likes you, David said finally, his voice carefully neutral. That's unusual. Oliver doesn't warm to people easily. His last 3 governesses couldn't manage him. I think perhaps they tried to manage him rather than teach him, Maya said. He's not difficult, he's brilliant, he needs challenge, not discipline. You've assessed all this in one morning. Your Grace, I've been teaching children for 5 years. I recognize exceptional ability when I see it. Oliver is extraordinary. He needs stimulation, engagement, intellectual equals, not governesses who treat him like a problem to be solved. David's expression shifted, something like pride flickering across his features. You're very confident in your assessment. I'm confident in my abilities as an educator. Are you? David moved closer, and Maya's pulse quickened. And are you confident you can forget what happened last night? Can you work in this house, teach my son, and never think about the moment Your Grace, Maya interrupted, her voice low but firm. What happened last night was a misunderstanding, a mistake. You apologized. I accepted. There's nothing more to discuss. Isn't there? David was close now, too close. Close enough that Maya could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, could smell the scent of leather and horses and that sandalwood cologne. Because every time I look at you, Miss Coates, I see your face in that candlelight, I hear your voice trembling, I remember the look in your eyes when I— Stop. Maya's hands clenched at her sides. You're my employer. I'm here for Oliver. This conversation is inappropriate. Yes, it is. But David didn't step back. Yet I can't seem to stop thinking about it. About you. Maya's breath caught. This was dangerous territory. Forbidden. Impossible. Your Grace. I don't know what game you're playing. But it's not a game. The rawness in David's voice stopped her cold. I wish to God it were. It would be easier. But from the moment the candlelight caught your face, something shifted. And I can't seem to shift it back. You must. Maya forced herself to meet his eyes. I need this position. Your son needs stability. Whatever you think you feel, whatever this is, it cannot happen. I know. Then step away from me. David hesitated for one long heartbeat. 2. Then, slowly, he stepped back. The loss of his proximity felt like cold water dousing her skin. You're right, David said, his voice once again controlled, distant. This was inappropriate. It won't happen again. Good. But Maya, the use of her given name sent shivers down her spine. If you ever feel uncomfortable in this house, if I ever overstep again, you will tell me immediately. You will not suffer in silence to keep your position. Do you understand? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Say it. I understand, Your Grace. Good. David moved toward the door, then paused. Oliver is right, incidentally. You are prettier than Miss Pemberton. Much prettier. It's going to make forgetting last night significantly more difficult. He left before Maya could respond. She stood alone in the nursery, her heart racing, her hands trembling, her mind spinning with a single, terrifying truth. She was in serious trouble. Because despite everything, the impropriety, the impossibility, the sheer insanity of it, she was falling for her employer. And from the way David had looked at her, he was falling too. The next 2 weeks were exquisite torture. Maya threw herself into teaching Oliver, and the boy bloomed under her attention. They studied Latin and mathematics, read Shakespeare together, explored David's extensive library. Oliver's formality gradually melted away, replaced by genuine warmth and childlike enthusiasm. He told Maya about his mother, the late Duchess, who died when he was 2, whom he barely remembered. He confided that his father worked too much, seemed sad too often, never smiled anymore. But he smiled yesterday, Oliver said one afternoon as they studied geography. When he came into the nursery and saw us reading together. I haven't seen him smile like that in years. Maya's chest tightened. She knew she was the reason for that smile, and it terrified her. Because the tension between her and David grew daily, he watched her. Constantly. Maya would feel his gaze during dinner in the servants' hall when he happened to pass through, would catch him observing from doorways when she worked with Oliver, would find him in the library late at night, both of them reaching for books, hands nearly touching, eyes meeting in the dim light. They never spoke beyond necessary communication, never acknowledged the electricity that crackled between them whenever they occupied the same space. But it was there, undeniable, consuming, growing stronger with each passing day. You're playing with fire, Mrs. Thornwell said one evening, cornering Maya in the servants' hall. Maya's heart sank. I don't know what you mean. Don't insult my intelligence, dear. I've been running this household for 20 years. I see things. Mrs. Thornwell's expression wasn't unkind, but it was serious. His Grace looks at you the way he used to look at the Duchess. And you look at him like, well, like a woman who knows she shouldn't but can't seem to help herself. Nothing has happened, Maya said quickly. I swear it, I would never. I believe you. But Maya, listen to me carefully. David Fisher is a good man, but he's also a duke. He has responsibilities, social obligations, expectations. He needs to remarry someone appropriate, a lady of quality, who can provide Oliver with a proper mother and give the duchy an heir. I'm aware of the social realities, Mrs. Thornwell. Are you? Because you're walking around this house looking like you've been struck by lightning, and he's walking around looking the same way, and everyone with eyes can see it. Mrs. Thornwell sighed. I'm not heartless. I understand attraction, but this cannot end well. Either you'll get hurt, or he'll sacrifice everything for you and create a scandal that will follow Oliver for the rest of his life. Either way, there are no good outcomes here. Maya knew she was right, knew it with painful clarity. But knowing didn't change the way her pulse quickened when David entered a room. Didn't stop her from lying awake at night, remembering the command in his voice. Didn't erase the fantasy that played out in her traitorous mind, David pushing her against a bookshelf, fingers tangling in her hair, lips claiming hers with desperate hunger. You're being ridiculous, Maya told herself. He's a duke, you're a governess, it's a fairy tale, it's not real. But it felt real. Painfully, dangerously real. The breaking point came 3 weeks after Maya's arrival. David's sister, Lady Helena Ashford, descended upon Thornfield Manor like an elegant hurricane. She was beautiful in the way aristocratic women often were, perfectly coiffed, blonde hair, expensive gowns, impeccable manners that barely concealed a sharp intelligence. Maya met her on Helena's second day, when the lady requested to observe Oliver's lessons. I want to ensure my nephew is receiving proper instruction, Helena announced, sweeping into the nursery like she owned it. 3 governesses in 2 years suggests either my brother has impossibly high standards, or the women he hires are incompetent. Or perhaps, Maya said evenly, the previous governesses didn't understand how to challenge an exceptional child. Helena's eyebrows rose. Bold. I like bold. Proceed with your lesson, Miss Coates. I'll observe. For the next hour, Maya taught as she always did, engaging Oliver in discussion about Roman history, encouraging him to analyze primary sources, asking questions that made him think critically. Helena watched in silence, her expression unreadable. When the lesson ended and Oliver ran off to find his father, Helena turned to Maya with newfound respect. You're very good at this. Oliver was actually happy. Engaged. She paused. Why did you become a governess, Miss Coates? You clearly have the education to have done other things. My father had debts. My mother needs medicine. Teaching pays well. Honest, good. Helena studied her with unsettling intensity. Tell me something. How long have you been in love with my brother? Maya's blood turned to ice. I beg your pardon? Don't bother lying. I watched the way you looked toward the window when you thought I wasn't paying attention. You were watching for him. And I've seen the way he's been this past week, distracted, agitated, more alive than he's been since Catherine died. That's you, isn't it? Lady Helena, I assure you. I'm not judging you, Miss Coates. If anything, I'm hopeful. David has been half dead for 5 years. Oliver has been growing up with a ghost for a father. If you're the reason that's changing, then I should be thanking you. Helena moved closer. But I need you to understand something. David is a duke. He has obligations to his title, his family, his social position. If he pursues you, and I think he wants to, it will cause a scandal. Society will crucify both of you. I know. Do you? Do you understand what it means to be whispered about, scorned, cut from invitation lists, to have Oliver mocked at school because his father married the governess? Yes. Maya's voice was barely a whisper, which is why nothing has happened and nothing will happen. I'm not delusional about my position, Lady Helena. I know exactly where I stand. Helena's expression softened. I believe you. But does David? Because the way he was looking at you over dinner last night, that's not a man who's accepted his limitations. That's a man who's decided he doesn't care about the consequences. She left Maya standing in the nursery, her words echoing like prophecy. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She wandered down to the library at midnight, seeking solace in books. But when she pushed open the door, she found David already there, standing at the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the moonlit grounds. He turned when he heard her enter. "I'm sorry," Maya said immediately. "I didn't know you were here. I'll leave." "Don't." The word was quiet but absolute. "Stay." "Your Grace, I don't think. My name is David. When it's just us, when there's no one watching, no society judging, call me David." Maya's breath caught. "That's not appropriate." "Nothing about this is appropriate." He set down his glass and crossed the room with deliberate intent. "Nothing about what I feel for you is proper, or acceptable, or wise. But it's real, Maya. And I'm tired of pretending it isn't." David, his name felt forbidden on her lips. "Dangerous. Perfect. Your sister was right. This can't happen. Think about Oliver." "I think about Oliver constantly. I think about his happiness. About the fact that he's laughed more in 3 weeks with you than he has in 3 years. About how he told me yesterday that you're the best thing that's ever happened to him." David stopped just inches from her, and Maya couldn't breathe. "Do you know what I said to him?" "What?" "I said you're the best thing that's happened to both of us." Maya's eyes burned with unshed tears. "David, I'm a governess. You're a duke. The world doesn't allow. The world can go to hell." His hand came up, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. "I spent 5 years following the world's rules, playing by society's expectations. And I was miserable, hollow, barely alive. And then you walked into my home drenched and lost and absolutely terrified, and something woke up inside me. Something I thought died with Catherine. What if this is just attraction, proximity? What if you wake up in 6 months and realize that I love you?" David's thumb traced her lower lip, and Maya's knees nearly buckled. "Too late. I already do." "David, tell me you don't feel it. Look me in the eye and tell me this is one-sided. That you're not lying awake at night thinking about me the way I think about you. Tell me, and I'll step back. I'll find you another position, somewhere far from here, and I'll never pursue this again." Maya couldn't. God help her. She couldn't lie. "I think about you constantly," she whispered. "I think about that night, about your voice in the darkness, about the way you looked at me when you realized who I was. I know it's wrong. I know it's impossible. But She didn't get to finish. David kissed her with the kind of desperation that comes from weeks of denial. His mouth claimed hers hungrily, possessively, like he was drowning and she was air. Maya's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, surrendering to something she'd been fighting since the moment the candlelight caught her face. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, David pressed his forehead against hers. "Come with me," he murmured. "Where? Anywhere. Everywhere. I don't care." His hands framed her face. "Marry me, Maya. Let me make this right. David, we can't Oliver society. We'll adjust, or they won't. Either way, I'm done living half a life." He kissed her again, softer this time. "I love you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to watch you teach my son and fill this house with light. I want to give Oliver siblings and watch you become the mother he deserves. I want you, Maya. Only you." Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. "What about your obligations, your title?" "The title will survive, and my only real obligation is to be happy, to give Oliver a father who actually lives instead of merely existing." David wiped away her tears with gentle thumbs. "Say yes, please. Say you'll risk society's censure for a chance at something real." Maya looked into those storm-colored eyes and saw her future, saw love and passion and family, saw Oliver laughing at their breakfast table, saw herself growing old beside this impossible, wonderful man. "Yes," she whispered. "God help us both, yes." David kissed her again, and in that kiss was promise and passion and forever. The scandal, when it broke, was exactly as spectacular as Lady Helena had predicted. Duke of Thornfield to marry his son's governess blazed across London's society pages. Drawing rooms buzzed with gossip, mothers clutched their pearls, lords muttered about impropriety. David didn't care. He married Maya in a small ceremony at Thornfield Manor's chapel, with Oliver serving as ring-bearer and Mrs. Thornwell crying happy tears in the front row. Helena stood as Maya's attendant, having become her fiercest defender once she saw how truly happy David was. "Society will forgive you eventually," Helena said at the wedding breakfast. "David's too powerful to ostracize permanently. And once they see how happy Oliver is, how well you manage the household, they'll come around. They always do." She was right. Slowly, grudgingly, society adjusted. The few friends who truly mattered, like Lord Edmund Hartley, who'd been mortified when he learned about the mistaken identity that first night, remained loyal. The rest didn't matter. Maya became the Duchess of Thornfield, and if some drawing rooms closed their doors, others opened theirs. She discovered that true nobility didn't care about birth, only character, and Maya had character in abundance. Oliver bloomed under his new circumstances. He had a mother who loved him, a father who smiled, and a home filled with laughter instead of silence. 2 years later, when Maya gave birth to twin girls, Oliver declared himself the luckiest brother in England. David never regretted his choice, not during the scandal, not during the whispers, not ever. Because he'd learned something important that night in the drawing room, when candlelight revealed the face of a terrified governess who'd stumbled into the wrong room at the wrong time. Sometimes the greatest mistakes lead to the greatest loves. And sometimes, love is worth every scandal, every consequence, every raised eyebrow and pursed lip that society can muster. He'd ordered her to remove her dress, thinking she was a stranger. Instead, he'd found his wife, his love, his future. And that, David often thought as he watched Maya read to their children in the library, was the best mistake he'd ever made. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comment below. If you love this story of survival, protection, and unexpected love, subscribe to our channel for more dark romance tales. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support helps us create more content like this. Thank you for being part of community.